Thank you, Madam Chair. His Excellency the Governor Generals, Edmund Lawrence, Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Denzil Douglas, Ministers of Government, Mr. Speaker, Members of Parliament, the Reverend Isaiah Phillip, Mrs. Janet Harris, Alternative Executive Director at the World Bank, Mrs. Francois Klotz, the Director of the Caribbean Management Unit, distinguished members of the public and private sectors, partners in the forum, the CDB, the IDB, the World Bank. I would like to single out the University of the West Indies, which has been in this program from the beginning, and the representative here. Of course, members of the ECCB, we support the process, students, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. The Caribbean Growth Forum is making steady progress in establishing itself throughout the countries of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. St. Kitts and Nevis is the 5th country in our jurisdiction in which it is being launched. And I rather suspect that it has been a tremendous learning experience for all those who have participated in it to date. The participants from the countries would have brought to the table their local experiences and would have profited from this exchange of knowledge in a suitably constructive setting. In fact, and as strange as it may seem, it is erroneous to assume that because we live in such close and small communities, that we share such experiences on a regular basis in such a structured manner. This is certainly not the case. For the World Bank and the other institutions involved in the process, they would have picked up some of the fundamentals of how some things work or don't work in our environment. Many lessons should have been learned and shared along the way. This exercise should be, in and of itself, a tremendous learning experience for us all. There are a few points I would like to make on this occasion, having attended 2 of these launches and been fully briefed on the other 2 in our jurisdiction. I think, first of all, of the matter of methodology. This is, in essence, a socio-economic event in which people have assembled to discuss economic circumstances in a social setting. Economic development, we are discovering more and more, occurs in a climate of social consensus on the objectives which communities and nations aspire to. The way in which these consensus-building activities occur and are executed can have a lasting impact on the society and the development process itself. Fora are established in which people learn the art of consensus building and which hone the tools and methodology of solving problems at the macro and micro levels. This, of course, requires a certain level of foresight and discipline, as these processes have to be carefully managed and their progress measured if they are not to end up as useless talk shops. In short, it is not only what is spoken or discussed, but the methodology and institutionalization of these processes, which are also important and become, as it were, social capital to be used for developmental purposes in the future. There must, of course, be a vision of where we want to be at some time in the future, for example, in the year 2027, and which we must find practical ways to achieve. The highlighting of the role of the private sector in this initiative, therefore, is timely, appropriate, and urgent. We live in a system of economic organization which is mainly market-driven, and therefore it is the private sector which has been identified as the engine of growth. It is the sector which produces goods and services for domestic consumption and for export. The approach to private sector development in the region, however, has fallen short of what is necessary to make it the engine of growth. This is due to 2 factors. 1, the very small size of the markets in these economies, and 2, the historical evolution of the private sector. The mindset of the private sector is largely risk-averse and not particularly innovative. The approach to this problem has to be both empirical and strategic, as it will not resolve itself by itself. There are a number of basic approaches which must be taken to jumpstart the process of private sector development. First, the private sector must with some urgency pursue the establishment of institutional arrangements for its comprehensive representation at the national, currency union, CARICOM, and international levels, so that they can network with critical agencies in both the public and private sectors outside of their own borders. All sectors, chambers of commerce, manufacturers associations, small business associations, agriculture, tourism, and service coalitions must come together under an umbrella organization at the currency union level so that they can effectively represent themselves. The attempts to establish a business council of the OECS must be strongly supported by the private sector itself, the governments, and the various regional and international institutions which are involved in the Growth Forum. It's only in this way that the private sector can come to a recognition of the part it needs to play in national and regional development. Surveys and censuses of the structure and composition of the private sector in the currency union are being undertaken at this time and are showing some interesting results. The IDB has done several surveys, and the Department of Statistics in St. Lucia has done a census which revealed that the private sector is composed of 1/3 formal and 2/3 informal entities. The question then becomes, what is the magnitude of the role that the domestic private sector can play in the development of these economies? The sectors mainly engage in wholesale, retail, real estate, and construction activities. These are not tradable activities which can earn foreign exchange, but depend on foreign inflows from other activities. We therefore have a major structural imbalance, that is, a sector which is overwhelmingly informal and import-oriented. For development purposes, these proportions need to be reversed. Assuming this reversal does take place, what would be the scale of activities of this sector which could move our growth rates from the current 1 to 2% to 5 to 7% on a sustainable basis to reduce unemployment, poverty, and transform our economies to be competitive both domestically and internationally? A number of critical issues have to be addressed to move us in the desired direction. The matter of the development of markets and firms is crucial. Since our domestic markets are very small, we will have to identify a range of markets which we must access. They range from the domestic itself to the currency union, the CARICOM, and the international. The same holds for firms, which have to be classified into micro, small, medium, large, and flagship. A major effort for private sector development must be the support of such market and firm structures. In other words, we need to know what we are dealing with if we want to successfully develop. So we need basic information on the structure of the private sector, how it's oriented, and what it is doing, in order to see what raw materials we have, so to speak, to move it forward. There are a number of agencies which already exist and must be substantially encouraged and upgraded to support the private sector development effort. Such agencies would include offices of private sector development, which now exist in some countries. They must be located in critical ministries, such as the Prime Minister's Office, Finance, or Trade, so the private sector can have a place in the governmental structure which is completely oriented to its facilitation and development. Investment promotion agencies, which cater to both foreign and domestic investors. And it's very important that that balance be maintained, because while we're encouraging foreign private investment, we need to, at the same time, work very hard to develop the domestic private sector. Bureaus of standards, which are critical for quality production of goods. If you're going to produce goods for export, and you want to make sure that you're selling real meat and not horse meat, you have to have Bureau of Standards which is going to examine the products that you export. The development of the community colleges to play a critical part in higher education, skills training, research, and development. I particularly emphasize research and development because that is crucial to the development process. And in fact, we have a number of agencies in our establishments which do scientific work, ministries of agriculture, ministries of health, right? And which need to be seen as scientifically oriented parts of the establishment so that we can get a scientific community involved in the whole process. Air and seaport authorities, which are critical to the export of tourism services and tradable goods. The costs of moving goods and services and people through these facilities are extraordinarily high, of course, given the small size, but we can do a lot to reduce the costs in that area. The efficient function of the gamut of government agencies, which are crucial to the effective and successful performance of the private sector. That goes without saying, of course. Two other matters are worthy of mention: the constructive role of the Doing Business Index and the clear policy in foreign direct investment to make it complementary to the development of the domestic private sector. In this regard, membership in the World Bank Group must be maximized through the effective use of MEGA, ICSID, and the IFC. My final point is on the matter of coordination, which is a showstopper to all our efforts. Coordination starts at the national level within islands, and then should extend between islands given the existence of an economic union. It would then incorporate other regional and international institutions. It is my considered opinion that we have a fundamental problem in the serious lack of coordination at all levels. Its absence has led to a monumental waste of resources of both time and money as we replicate, duplicate, and repeat activities over and over again. We need to set aside quality time to have a sober, honest, and objective appraisal of this issue and to commit to its successful resolution. Given our current level of resources and our current circumstances, the exchange of information, cooperation, collective decision-making, and collective action, as implied by much closer coordination, is a sine qua non for our growth and development. I am hopeful, very hopeful indeed, that the group forum will lead us in this direction. I thank you.